Luckily, he got a car like right around the corner. So I was like, I needed that.
So 15 times, 12 times, the word sober is used in the Bible. Be sober, be vigilant. For what reason? There's a roaring lion roaming about, seeking whom he may devour. So we could understand that sobriety is not talking about alcohol, or that kind of drunkenness. Or another word that's used for that is dissipation, King James word. But I'd like to have us consider the importance of sobriety, the importance of being a sober believer. What does that evoke? What does that look like? A sober believer. This gentleman here, which is very precious, he grew up Mennonite, and it revealed itself as legalistic. I didn't think it was so much so, but it was like maybe in terms of his particular household and everything. But in any case, it would be very easy for me to think that that's sobriety, like how the Amish or the Mennonites live. They don't have a lot of external things going on. But is that the solution? And we would say, not at all. But so let's talk about what is the biblical provision for sobriety or soberness, or when a man is to be sober, he's to be vigilant, he's to be aware. What takes away from soberness? Intoxication. What's another word that the King James uses for intoxication? Surfeiting. Yeah. Think of the surfing. But anyway, so that's our subject for today. It could be. If you want to talk about something else, that's good too.
I just think that there's without a vision, the people are perish. Without a vision, a good translation of that is that the people are unmanageable. They're wild. They're unmanageable. And I see sobriety as being a person who is looking at the long-term consequences. Is always has that in view. They're making decisions now based on the future. Whereas surfeiting and dissipation and intoxication is somebody making decisions now based on momentary pleasure. Surfeiting is overeating. I enjoy this, I'm just going to keep doing it, even though it's bad for me, even though it's eventually going to kill me. I'm not thinking about that right now. I enjoy spaghetti and meatballs. I'm having another bowl of spaghetti and meatballs. I'm drinking because drink in the Old Testament, wine is used symbolically for joy. And that when Jesus turned the water into wine, it was a representation of this incredible richness that God brings into the situation. So much so that the people who thought it was the best wine they ever had, they were like, we saved the best for last.
The end was better than the beginning.
This was like a moment, it's like this joy in the moment versus this trying to sublimate. Forget about my plan, forget about the future, forget about this. I just want everything right now to be okay. And So that idea, like, I think the vision is this corporate representation of soberness. You know, people have a vision, like we're going to reach the neighborhood, we're going to reach these countries, we're going to, we're going to be involved in the Great Commission, you know. Whereas, but personal soberness is that, I'm going to invest in a person. I'm not going to, I'm not going to say everything that I think in this moment because I want this end result. So I have temperance, I have self-control because I'm searching for an end result. I want a redemptive result. So I'm not going to criticize this person. I want a redemptive result. I want them to eventually be responsible. I don't want to just vent my frustration on them in the moment. So that idea of like a sober person doesn't react, they respond because they have a vision for the future. Like the one role, like talk about the pastor teacher role of New Testament leadership, and that Granville Sharp rule that links us together. But then there's the episkopos aspect of being a leader, which is the person who sees beyond. Who's like, it's fall, and we're like, look, he's thinking about spring. And he's talking about spring. Like, he's promoting a vision. Like, he's talking about the convention. I get the text saying, it's supper, like, this Sunday, like, where, and it's like, that episkopos, like, giving you something to look forward to. I think a sober person has a lot to look forward to.
Yes.
And that's what they're motivated by, what they're looking forward to, versus being only right now.
But the world system is built upon the right now, and so there's three things that came out of another conversation we had with this. One is distraction for purpose, to have passivity be the basis of life, everyday life. And then this interesting thing about time. I had a young person tell me, wow, time is flying. Now, not normally, but historically I've heard that from older people. And yeah, because we have a lot more to look back on than a younger person who has a lot to look forward to. But what is it that impacts my sense of passing time? It is that I'm oversaturated, overstimulated, and distracted in the rhythm that I have been created for. Let's think about the fact that time is time the measurement of seconds into minutes, into hours, into days, into weeks. But if you took that measurement out, which is a clock, how did people in the ancient world keep time? By seasons, by the movement of celestial, the moon, sun up to sun down. We didn't have electricity or the kind of illumination that we have. And then think of this, food. We don't have the scarce. They had the scarcity of food. Okay.
Without the raw water?
With the highlight, whenever.
I almost lost my cup of coffee all over.
It was that last comment.
Full mug of coffee. Went down the wrong way. I almost lost it. That's frustrating.
You're sitting in the hot seat over there. Anyway, so, and you know where this brought me? It brought me to rethinking about the reality of rest, but not, not just the Sabbath, though the Sabbath encapsulates that idea, but a disconnect. It's a disconnect from whatever routine I'm in, and throughout the seasons of one's life, so a child's routine is different from a teenager's routine, is different from a young parent's routine, who's different from a retiree's routine. It's all the same person, but the orientation changes. And yet, God would say to all of them, you need to rest. You need a disconnect. So, when people think of worldliness, and they hear that word world, like, don't be worldly, what are they thinking about? That's a general question. What are they usually thinking about? So-and-so, I said, I think they're worldly. What are they saying with that statement?
They're stuck in their
Saying
own
the love of the
world.
world. Partying. The love of the world. They said,
Well,
John,
okay,
First
but you
John,
can't use the word to define the word.
John. It's a system.
You can use the word.
It's a cosmic system.
Okay, what is that?
That's why he said, love not the world.
What is the cosmic system comprised of? Is it just to get people to, fight wars and be hateful?
Well, it's Antichrist. Anything that's Antichrist.
Okay, but
that
Antichrist,
cosmic world.
Antichrist, to some people, thinks it's all about, the devil's horns and pitchfork and drugs and
Well, he's the god of
crime.
it. He's the god of it. Like we got.
He's the god of it.
He is behind it. He's the impetus of the whole system.
Worldliness could be that I idolize my job. So when it comes to retiring, it's like it's a big deal. It's a real big deal. But if I have rest, and the rest is radical in the context, because in the world, in worldliness, you don't rest. It's perpetual, continual activity. The game is on Sunday. I got to tune in, and then I've got I've got to take my kids here. What are we going to do? We take a vacation, but I have to take a couple of days off because I'm so stressed out about my vacation. I mean, it's that kind of intensity and stimulation. Used to be that people would hear the president of the United States on their radio. On their what? On the radio, yeah. And the family would assemble around the AM radio to listen, because that was important. That's how information got communicated. Now, even if you take the radio out, the basis of communication was verbal and it was in person.
Word of mouth.
Yeah, exactly. That slowed everything down. But today, I can find out what's happening in Iran right now. I remember when we first went to that part of the world after the towers fell. Shock and awe. Remember that? President, shock and awe. And there was a camera in some place in Iraq, just a stationary camera. And we were sitting there. It was like late at night, because it was daytime there. Late at night, waiting for the shock and awe to witness it on TV. And whereas I probably should have been resting. I probably should have been sleeping, but I wanted to see that, And so then it's the next thing, then it's the next thing. and pretty soon, so now you have a decade that goes by, and you say to yourself, like, where, like, what happened? Like it was all a single stream without seasonal breaks, without, circumstantial breaks. But that's the norm. That's the worldliness. That's the narrative. Keep going, keep moving, keep doing. Be entertained, be, just overwhelmed with information. We understand, the Bible speaks about that. That in the end days, information will increase. Well, from what? To what? It's like unbelievable. That so much so that if we could tell everybody in this room, be silent for 2 minutes, it's not going to happen. Not because they need to pay attention to me, but they just couldn't do that. It's just like,
Or you just get a lot of noise from pestilence in your head.
yeah, that's true too. It doesn't get quiet
No, it doesn't.
internal. How did that happen? Well, I'm asking the question, but
If I'm understanding what you're saying,
I trust.
then what I'm hearing is that within Christianity, you're talking about Christians. You're not talking about the world. You're not talking about the unsaved.
Whoa.
You're talking about
Whoa.
Okay. Well, let's address the Christians first. There's a big gap between Christians who believe. John chapter 8, Jesus spoke to them. He spoke to the people that believed. This is what he said. He said, if you want to be my disciple, continue in the word. So there are many Christians who are Christians, but it's a decision to continue in the word, continue in categorical doctrine. The only ones that explore and rest is directly the rest in our peace that we have in our heart is directly proportional to how much I continue in word-wide categories and being led, spirit-taught and spirit-led. That's where the rest comes from. You don't get rest. There's no shortcut. There's no shortcut to rest. It's salvation. Salvation to anyone who believes. It's finished work. You don't believe, the blood is enough. Grace is enough. But it's a decision that a child of God, every child of God will make that decision. To be sober means just that. It means to be a disciple. It means to be a learner through categories of doctrine in the soul. That's a learner. And then you grow with growing in grace and knowledge. Saved by grace, and then you grow in grace and knowledge. But the proper meaning of sober, I believe, is to be not spiritually lethargic. When somebody is lethargic, it's like if I came in here and I was drunk, right? And I was drunk. You're all sober, physically you're sober. You haven't had a drop. But I come in and I'm head's falling on the table and I'm drunk. And I've been drunk before, so I know what that feels like. If you've never been drunk, you don't know. But conversation's sake, I come in here and I'm all drunk. And what's the first thing one of you is going to say? Give him a cup of coffee. It's sober this guy up. Sober this guy up because he's drunk on something. Now, it's a spiritual lethargy. The lion wants to get us into spiritual lethargy. But in order to do that, he has to get you away from doctrine. He's got to get you away from the Word of God.
Distraction.
Get away. And you make that decision to go that way, and then the next thing you know, you're in Proverbs 7. You're an empty-headed fool empty-headed fool that refused doctrine and refused, and the temptress comes and you just go like a sheep to the slaughter. You just go that way. And I know that because I did that. I did that too. You know, so it's personal experience we're talking. You know,
Yeah.
not pointing the finger at anybody that's saying. But it's like, yeah, it's
But
like.
see, if you came in physically drunk, there would be others who were not Christians and believers who would laugh at that, think it's comical, at least. But for us, it's like a worldly believer is someone who is intoxicated in their own life. They don't have time to console. They don't have time to pray. They don't have time to, like you said, follow categorical doctrine. I mean, they do,
It puts you in the flesh. Pastor Stephen did a message on that many years ago where he talked about being drunk today. Because there are many things you can be drunk with, but it's all of the characteristics of the flesh, which everybody has different. Everybody has different things. We're not all the same that way. Some people are more envy, some have greed, some have jealousy, some have this, whatever. But there's drunkenness. People are drunk on it, and that's not a good place to be. It's not a good place to be. Sober means really, I think the basic definition of sober is you're walking in the spirit and you're full of the spirit, and you won't fulfill it. You won't be drunk with the flesh. It's kind of simple in a way. No, it's simple. It's very simple. But yeah, I think they use that word in the Bible where God is so. When we hear the word, we think of one thing, which is drinking alcohol, right? But it's really a spiritual. It's a spiritual drunkenness that they're warning against. That's all. I mean, that's why Paul said he gave the recipe for success. Be filled with the Spirit. You won't fulfill the lust of the flesh. Fulfilling the lust of the flesh is like a drunkenness. You get caught up in envy, jealousy, caring of the details of life. You're wrapped up in the details of life. That's a drunkenness.
In 1 Corinthians 7:32, and Paul's addressing marriage. And he's talking, and he says, I want you to be free from anxiety. And he talks about the unmarried man and then the married man. And he talks about the unmarried woman, the virgin, and the married woman. And he says the same thing for the married man and the married woman. He says that you'd be occupied with worldly things and how to please your wife. Or a married woman is occupied with worldly things and how to please her husband. But it's very interesting the differences between, he says, about the unmarried man. He says the unmarried man cares about how to please the Lord. And the virgin girl is worried about how to be holy in body and spirit. So sobriety for a woman is being holy in body and spirit. This is like pleasing the Lord by being set apart, by being holy in body and spirit. And if a woman thinks that she is not holy in body and spirit, either believes that or has been forced upon her, she is going to be a very distressed person.
Be different.
That is like,
Have you
for
ever
a
tried to-
woman, that is the most distressing thing. And if a man thinks that he can't figure out how to do something, how to please the Lord, like that I am no longer functional as a man. I am no longer effective. I can't do anything. I can't get anything done. That is the most difficult thing, probably.
This comes from believing a lie.
And sobriety is this understanding that I am functional because of who I am in Christ.
That's the key, right there.
And for a woman, I am holy and set apart because of who I am in Christ. And marriage can complicate that, is what Paul is saying. Because then you get focused on what you were saying. I get busy with the details of,
Have you ever tried to talk someone out of? Have you ever talked to someone that's totally occupied with the details of life? Tried to talk them out of it.
yeah,
It doesn't make sense to them.
yeah. They get angry at you.
So
Don't even start.
wrapped up
Yeah.
in the details, and you're like, snap out of it. You want to say snap out of it, but it's like, what does it take? What does it take to have someone snap out of it?
Well, the Apostle John, in the conclusion of his
I know.
little letters that are loaded, keep yourselves from idols. Now, he wasn't talking about a statue or, that kind of thing. Fast forward to the 21st century, what would be categorically idolatry today?
What would be idolatry today? In your mind, anything that takes the place of God.
Okay, but be specific. Be specific. Name the name.
TV set.
TV. Thank you.
Oh, well, that would be, it's entertainment.
Entertainment. There we go. What is that?
It starts with self. It starts with self. It starts with, spiritually, it starts with self.
You mean I can't watch American Idol anymore?
Because you're lifting up self.
That program definitely.
It's like it's right in it's right in the title of the program.
That's right.
Just hide it right in plain sight.
Now, that guy, going back to that guy that was a Mennonite. See, a Mennonite is, I've also had long conversations with him. A Mennonite simply is somebody that broke off from the Amish church. The Mennonites broke off from the Amish. Now, the Amish are very strict. They follow very strict rules and regulations. It's a religion. So is Mennonite. It's a religion. They're more of a Mennonite is more of like a liberal, is like a liberal Amish. They don't fellowship with each other. It's a liberal Amish. It's almost like a Catholic, Episcopals breaking off from the Catholic Church.
They drive vehicles?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they
me,
watch
sir.
TV.
Sir.
They watch TV.
I'm sorry. You just took the camera out of the way.
Well, why don't we eat here? Well, I didn't know whose camera it was. Here you go. I could have announced to the room in general, I guess.
You could have done that.
Worse,
That's true.
yeah.
There we go. No harm, no foul.
So yeah, I mean that's so anything is.
Go figure.
Everybody just left.
Anything that takes the place of God in your life is.
But how do I know that? How would I know that being responsible for, like what Pastor Lightsey was saying, Lightsey,
He's precious guy.
yeah. How would I know if, in fact, being responsible for my family, where do I draw the line where that becomes an all-consuming kind of thing? Because we've had people that say, Sunday's my only day off. So you can't ask me to give up my Sunday. Yeah, for the Lord. But let's go back to not just giving it up to go to church, but is there an established pattern where I can disconnect? Why do people bring their work to home? Or, they're home and they should be thinking about being at home, but they're thinking about their job, or they're thinking about, you know, the possibility of a raise, or maybe they're thinking about they might get fired, you know? And they can't disconnect or separate what they were doing, you know, for 8 hours before to where they are now. And the problem with that is that life then becomes this continuous stream. You know, we could say, eat, sleep, go to work. Eat, sleep, go to work. Eat, sleep, go to work. You know, that kind of routine, and there is no break in that cycle, or what we would say, the hamster and the wheel. You know, just a whole lot of activity, but you're not going anywhere. And people understand that frustration, but they don't know what to do with it, or they don't know how to get off that.
The gospel, the good news of the gospel.
Well, that's part of
is the
it,
only
but-
way to, is the only way to break free from that.
But you said
Everybody
it.
would be that.
You said it. You know, salvation is one thing, but discipleship, meaning, can I get taught that as a
That
reality?
really is, that's the key. That's the key to the abundant living. Jesus said, I've come that they might have life and have it more abundantly. I think that's the key. The key is growing in grace and knowledge, having categorical doctrine in the heart, and focus. Sober thinking, you know. And don't try to preserve anything about self. The cross is, there has to be a death. In order for us to live properly, there has to be a death.
Yeah.
There has to be a death to self. I'm sorry, but there's no alternative to dying. You know, if you don't die, you're fine alone. But if you die, you spring out. That's the exclusivity of the gospel. It's the beauty of the gospel.
It is unique. It's radical.
That's the beauty of the gospel.
I mean, it's so radical that
Because he said you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free.
some Christians don't get there. There is a rest for the people of God, and then people say, you know, what are you talking about?
Oh, you gotta go?
Yeah.
Yeah, they gotta go.
Bye, Pastor Allen.
Oh, take it easy. Have a great day.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.
So therefore, I mean, that's why when 1 Corinthians talks about the judgment, the Bema seat, there'll be many Christians who are saved as even as by fire. They didn't really, there was no fruit to speak of.